Nancy, Ron, David, Barb, Cindy, Jan, Lisa, that you're yeah. It just everybody. I'm looking at you saying them. The only thing that Ron, I'm looking at you saying them. Okay, 582. Send me, O Lord, send me. If you don't know it, listen real close to the word. O God of might, O Son of light, O Holy Spirit, please. Thy church until us and keep that unity. Let all bring down. Yet one great soul that we sounds good. Let's do verse 2. With holy I, thy spirit, Lord, to be with all in thy till darkness to be seen. If thou, Lord, feel my treasure, I'll get to thy for me. Say, be Lord. Verse 3. Oh, that I would be unfaithful, that only thee is left when is the he built my life, he could for himself. While facing send me. Father,
Sing Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
You did super job, young lady. Thank you. She did very well. Well, I'm glad you're out tonight and here. And Barbara said she wanted to hear something encouraging or something because she almost didn't come tonight. It's because that song you knew the Holy Spirit was already on you. Hey, I'm not going to preach tonight. I'm just going to share with you briefly because my throat's not going to take a lot of talk. It took a lot of talk this morning, and evidently it talked things it shouldn't have talked. Samuel was not the guy I was trying to refer to when I referred to Samuel. It was Daniel. For those that didn't know, next time, Nancy was giving me one more time, and then she was going to yell at me. It's Daniel. So I don't know why. Do what? Yeah. But, last business meeting, and I asked the church about letting me go and Blaine, my oldest son, go up to Iowa and just do a vision trip for a church. And we had done one in 2000. Willie, what year did we go up? 2013. We went to a place called Eagle Grove, Iowa. Beautiful little town. And so Blaine and I left out early on Tuesday morning, and we got up there and we met Chase Abner, who is a North American Mission Board Send Now network for Iowa. And he told us, he said, I have never had anybody call me and tell me we want to plant a church in Iowa. And he said, I've been here since 2018. And I've never had someone just literally call and say, hey, we want to look at this. And so we were very fortunate of, Blaine's a vehicle, 60 miles a gallon. I think we paid, what did I tell you, Willie, $60? $60 up there and back. And plus, Blaine and I did a lot of driving around. So it was only $60 in gas. So God bless there. And then the mission home we stayed home in Ames, Iowa, was a 5-bedroom, 2-bath, beautiful, beautiful home right next to the church that has it. And we really had a good time there as well. But what I want to talk about is what we saw. When we were up there in 2013, we worked on a 2-story house. We did a lot of little carpentry work, and we did a lot of scraping and a lot of painting. We actually repainted 2/3 of the house. And it was on a little a street that had a divider down the middle. And we went down that street 3 times. And Blaine was on that trip with me. So Blaine knew what this house looked like. And we go down this street 3 times, and we can't find this house. And I'm like, this is the only laned road in this little town that's like this. I know that house is here. So Blaine pulls up my PowerPoint and that I'd done back when we were at Roby, and he goes, Dad, here's the house that was next to it. And as we're going down the road, Blaine goes, there's the house. And I go, that means that's house. And then I saw something in the yard that reminded me of that house. And so we whipped in there and got out, and we're thinking, what, did a tornado come through? What happened? Well, a year ago, January 8th, the house burnt. And the young lady that was in it, that we had witnessed to and won to the Lord in 2013, had to jump from the top of the house. And she only broke her heel. But I was able to get a talk with her again and visit with her. And she lost her Bible that my wife had given her when we were up there in 2015. And but she'd brought in a new house. They split them in two. What do they call them? Yeah, double wide or whatever, a modular home. And she was so excited because the other home, Willie, was pretty rough shape, was it not? It was in rough shape. But anyway, we drove around that town, and when Blaine and I had been originally looking at this, because we've been looking at it for about 3 months, 2 or 3 months, looking into doing something like this and discussing and praying, we found a building up there that we thought, well, that'd be a great building maybe to lease, or maybe they'd let us rent it, because it's a mission of disaster relief mission place that's non-affiliated. I mean, it's a non-denominational. You know the Sukup grain bins? The great big grain bins? Well, this guy in Iowa got in cahoots with Sukup, and Sukup was donating, is the way I understood it, after the Haiti earthquake. They were taking these 20-foot through grain bins, and they were putting them up to 16 foot tall with the dome on them, and they would put a flat in them for them to sleep, and they supposedly will withstand a hurricane. And so we went in and we visited with the lady that was in there, because everything's pretty well gone because they're moving their main location. But anyway, as we were talking to the young lady, I witnessed her. I know, because you witness. I don't assume anybody's saved anymore. You can't. And I shared the gospel with her, and she's just reciting everything I'm saying to her, and so I know it's a good thing. And then she goes, "So where are you guys really from?" Because Blaine and I hadn't really said where we were from yet. And I said, "Well, I'm from Houston, Missouri." And Blaine goes, "Well, I'm from Lake Ozarks," is how he put it. And this young girl, folks, if you want to talk about a God thing, this young girl, probably 30 years old, she goes, "My mom lives in Osage Beach." She goes, "I haven't spoke to my mom in over a year. She's lost. She won't talk to me." Blaine goes, "Can you give me her address? I'll go see her." That was worth the trip right there. You know what I mean? And Blaine is so ready. He's going to go try to meet with her next week, or this coming week. But we drove around that town after doing that, and we found that lady's house, and things just seemed right, but yet it didn't seem right. And as we drove around and looked at the different parks, everything's kept up well. Now, don't take this as a racial thing in any way, but there was a lot more Hispanics in the neighborhood than there were before. And I know in our church, I don't know how many people speak Spanish. Does anybody here speak fluent Spanish? See, senior, you speak fluent? No? Okay, thank you, Nancy, for the truth. But, as Blaine and I, we were kind of looking at each other thinking, well, we can still make this work. And we asked the young lady, "What does this town need?" She said, "The churches in this town, they only focus on the adults and the senior adults." She said, "There is absolutely nothing for the children in this town." So we saw the Hispanic crowd, and the first thing you think of Hispanics and kids, what do they like to play? Soccer. The game I probably hate the most is soccer. I know nothing about it. It looks like you're just running a marathon with a ball. But anyway, we discussed that, and he took us to another little town. It was about 2 miles away that had 619 people or something like in it. And, there was nothing there for anybody to do. It was just a little town. And he drove us to another little town. I say little, it was probably 12,000. And we drove around it and just didn't feel there. And so the next morning, Blaine and I was going to go to Starbucks. And then Blaine goes, "Well, hey, Scooters has a really great breakfast burrito." I said, "Okay, let's go to Scooters," because all I wanted was black coffee. Well, I got me I'm not kidding you, Scooters. The burrito was this big, $5 and something. And it tastes like they had popped it out of a package and stuck in the microwave. But anyway, long story short there. Yeah, well, Blaine left there and went to McDonald's and bought him two more burritos, because he goes, "This ain't going to do me." But because we went to Scooters, caused us to go to a town of Clarion, which is about 12 miles out of Eagle Grove, or 9 miles, I forget which it was. And as we're driving around Clarion, it's just me and Blaine. We're just touring this town up and down. And I'm on the phone with the goober back here, David. And Blaine's asking me questions, and I'm trying to look at the town, you know, because it's only a town of about 2,500, and we're going through it. And we're leaving the town because I didn't realize, and I just hung up the phone with David. And Blaine goes, "What'd you think?" I go, "I don't know. I was on the phone with David the whole time." So I said, "Turn around and go back through it." And we turned around, we went back through this little town. And I mean, a spirit just, because Blaine was already ready. He said, "This is the place," because it's within eyeshot of Eagle Grove. It's within eyeshot of this other little town of 600. But this town, again, not being racially biased in any way, did not have near the Hispanics, but had a few. And we got thinking that this is the town that if we can work in, we can hopefully reach some of the Hispanics of this town. Then we can start on Eagle Grove, because then we have an end to get in with someone that speaks. Because I would say the statistics show from the census it's only like 9% are Hispanic in Eagle Grove. Well, I'd say they're off about 30%, because it was pretty close to half. I think we counted 14 Mexican restaurants in a town of 2,500. That's the only kind of restaurants there were in town. But anyway, we ran into this town of Clarion. And so Blaine and I called Chase, and we're talking to him on the way home. And Chase goes, "Well, let me give you a call back, and we'll discuss something, you know, a little more later." And Chase calls back like in 10 minutes. And he goes, "You guys aren't going to believe this," but he goes, "The place you stayed at in Ames, Iowa, the church that set you up, the elder of that church that made sure everything was ready for you and good for you in that house is from Clarion, Iowa. And he knows most of the people in Clarion, Iowa. And he says it is in a desperate need. And he said, our church will definitely sponsor with you if you do this." Just out of the blue, said they would definitely. And so, you know, God's opening doors. And so now what's going to take place is Blaine and I are going to meet with Chase and this week. And we're going to visit by Zoom. Is that what it's called? We're not going back to Iowa. 2 days, up and down in 2 days is long enough. But anyway, because we're talking northern Iowa. We could have went to Minneapolis in an hour and a half. But anyway, so we're going to Zoom with Chase this week, and we're going to try to iron out some thoughts and some ideas. And then what the idea will be is to put a 5-year plan together. A 5-year plan, and then we're going to start the recruitment process. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is not going to something probably it's even going to happen this year, even though we're fresh into this year. But we're going to try to get started so that next year, we can get, because my goal, I think, how many did I say I had, Willie? Churches, 20, 30. Anyway, I told them I would like to see 50 churches involved, because that gives us 52 weeks out of the 52 that we can have somebody up there whether it's just prayer walking or starting a Bible study in a certain area to get things going. And so be in prayer for that. And that's what we're getting ready to do is go to our time of prayer, but be in prayer for that as a church, because you know, Brother Ron, as we talked in a business meeting the other night, you said we need to be in prayer for those churches that in our area that don't have pastors. And I'm going to kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think it's time for those churches to close their doors and to get into churches that are doing something, because they've got people that could do something that are not doing something, that could do something if they was in a church that was a little bigger. Because in Eagle Grove, Iowa, for Clarion, Iowa, there is no evangelical work going on whatsoever. Nobody is sharing the gospel. I shared the gospel with one young man, and I told you that this morning. Owen, his dad owned the pub, but he was so interested in the gospel, interested in what it meant. He said he thought he knew who Jesus was. He thought he was a Christian, but he was, and so witnessed to a few others, and we won't go there because they weren't near as happy to see me. But That's part of witnessing. But then in all of my witnessing with the penny, for those of you that know the penny, and you guys may not be aware of what the penny actually is yet, I'm going to address that after Easter. But I've given probably close to 6,000 of those pennies away. And the first thing I normally ask is, what do you see? And when they say, well, I see a penny or a cross, I'll say, no, it's a penny with a hole in it. I have never had anybody say, well, it's a penny with a hole in it. This young man the other night, me and Blaine and Dylan are sitting around because we stopped and had dinner with Dylan on the way through in Marshall. And this young man, he pops it and I pop it in his hand. He goes, that's a penny with a hole in it. And I was like, that's what I was. I was like, what? I don't know what to say now. And so anyway, I shared the gospel with him, and he is looking for a church. He was no doubt saved. He was quoting the scripture with me. And as a matter of fact, he may have watched this morning because he said there's just no evangelical churches that he's found in Marshall that he really fits in with in Marshall. Just be in prayer for those things, but be in prayer especially for this woman that Blaine is going to go visit this week because she's self-diagnosed herself as partially schizophrenic and something else her daughter said. And that's why she goes, that's why I can't just talk to her. She goes, she just goes goofy on me. So I told Blaine, maybe she just needs Jesus and get all that out of her head. So we'll be praying for her in that, and be totally in prayer for this opportunity that God may be opening up, because Ozark Baptist Church, if you'll remember, is responsible for the Baptist churches in this association, basically, in this very community anyway. This was the first one, and then they planted. First Baptist Church in Houston was planted by this church. Brown Hill was planted by this church. There's several that we planted, but that was back in the 1850s to 1900s. And I think that's something we need to get back in again, is because there are areas that are not being reached with the gospel that are just wide open in the United States. It's almost as bad as when I went to El Salvador and Romania, when you get up in those northern areas, because they know the name of Jesus, but they don't know nothing about Jesus. And that's the key of hopefully getting a church started up in those areas, and then we can branch out from there, and they can start their own churches, and we can do something else. So, prayer concerns